Hey there, Carnage Cravers. Welcome back to Carnage Corner. I am Ken Carnage, and this is the 2018 WWE Hall of Fame review. And believe me, I will not take anywhere near as long as they did. Some of those people are long-winded as fuck, but I digress. So, I'll get right into it. The Hall of Fame was hosted by Jerry Lawler, Jerry the King Lawler, as it usually is, which is great. It's great to see King in that role. He does very well with it. And of course, in that role, it's his job to introduce the people who will be inducting the Hall of Famers into the Hall of Fame. It's the whole thing. So, and of course, the first inductees were the Dudley Boys, and they played the package on the Dudley Boys. Great package. Just a fantastic package. I always liked the Dudleys. I was always a big Dudleys fan, and they actually had Edge and Christian to induct them, which was nice. You know, Edge and Christian are always entertaining. They're always funny. You know, and they, of course, they inducted the Dudley Boys, and the Dudleys themselves also entertaining. You know, of course, talked about their separate upbringings and then the coming together and being a team going forward, you know, which was great and a great story in and of itself. You know, some kibitzing between the two, which is always fun. You know, they obviously thanked their families and their peers, and Tommy Dreamer. They both very adamantly thanked Tommy Dreamer, and they also brought up the really nice moment. They actually brought up the Hardy Boys, and the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudley Boys all took a bow, you know, because of the history that they shared with the TLC matches, and you know, just they really made tag team wrestling, those three teams, in the 90s and heading into the 2000s. So there's a lot of history there. And you know, and it was a nice moment. It was a nice moment. It's actually nice to see, and I'm sure some of you caught it too. You know, we actually saw a hug between Matt Hardy and Edge, which is nice to see. It doesn't really surprise me because, I mean, the beef is years old, and you know, they've both moved on, grown up. There's no real reason for a grudge anymore, and it's nice to see that they don't really hold one. So. You know, that being said, or it could have just been a professional moment, and you know, they still hate each other's guts. I don't know. It didn't look that way, but nice moment. The Dudleys put some poor sap through a table right there on stage, which was funny. You know, I'm happy for the Dudleys. It's good for them. They deserve it, and that's not just a chant. They really do. Tag team wrestling wouldn't be what it is today without the Dudley Boys. All right. The next inductee was Hillbilly Jim, and of course, Hillbilly was inducted by Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart actually stumbling a little bit on his words, which is not normal for Jimmy Hart. You know, normally he's very, very animated and very, very sure of what he's saying and everything else. He just seemed a little, I don't know if nervous is the word I want to use, but I guess it's the word I'm gonna use. He seemed a little nervous, which, I mean, that's fine. I mean, it's one of those rare occasions in the wrestling business where you know that all the attention is on you, because normally, you know, you're working with somebody else, sometimes multiple somebody else's, to create the moment. Hillbilly came out. Hillbilly gave a speech. It was a nice speech. Hillbilly's cadence was a little slow. You know, there were some moments when you thought maybe he was going to be done, and then he wasn't. And but you know, he got everything that he wanted to say out. And you know, he talked about Hulk Hogan. Actually, there was a lot of talk about Hulk Hogan tonight. A lot of people who were being inducted tonight have had, you know, Hogan was a big part of their career, so it only made sense. And then of course, before they went on to everybody else, they did the legacy inductions, which is just a code name for these are the inductions that you're not going to know about because they're obscure, but we still want to honor them. You know, so, and of course this was guys like Stan Stasiak, who of course was, oh god, Stasiak was the 4th WWE champion, the 4th ever WWE champion, for like a week before he lost it to Bruno Sammartino. But you know, Stan Stasiak, El Santo, you know, Jim, sorry, Landos. Him I didn't know. The other ones I had at least heard of. Sputnik Monroe, another one who I myself am not familiar with before my time. Boris Malenko, of course, everybody's heard of Boris Malenko. Dora Singh, another one that I actually was not aware of. Obviously an Indian wrestler, very popular in India. Apparently became a politician in India. Funny, the legacy of professional wrestlers becoming politicians apparently is it goes way back. It is a very political business, so I mean it makes sense that the transition wouldn't be all that hard. Hiro Matsuura and Rufus R. Jones, also part of the legacy class. Cora Combs and Lord Alfred Hayes, which I think Lord Alfred Hayes, they might have been able to get away with having him as a main inductee one year, but I can understand why they may have tossed him into the legacies. And then of course we went into the Ivory package. You know, and Ivory of course had a great career, very prominent in the Attitude Era. Probably most well remembered for her part in the Right to Censor gimmick. She was inducted by Molly Holly, who I would not have recognized. I mean, literally, before watching the Hall of Fame, if I bumped into Molly Holly on the street, I would not know that it is Molly Holly. She looks totally different. And I don't mean that in a bad way. She just looks totally different. I would not have recognized her. But that being said, we got Ivory's speech, in which she compared going into the Hall of Fame. She basically said it was going to be her wedding ceremony. And that got a little weird. It was a little weird. I mean, it was a nice speech and all. I just... The wedding comparison got a bit weird. And then, like, she did this thing, and it's like, is she now married to the WWE Universe? I mean... Reverend Devon was there. It could be illegal. It could be a legal marriage at this point. No, I'm kidding. It was a tad bit weird though. I mean, me and the missus could kind of look at each other like, the hell is she talking about? But that being said, we then went into the Kid Rock package, and of course Triple H inducted Kid Rock. I think it kind of would have been better for Undertaker to induct Kid Rock, but that would ruin what they have planned for WrestleMania, because the more I think about it, the more I think we're going to get Kid Rock performing American Badass. We're going to get Undertaker coming out on his Harley in an impromptu match between Undertaker and Cena, which hopefully Undertaker will win. But neither here nor there. So the... yeah, so Kid Rock, he came out, he gave a speech. I loved Kid Rock's speech. It was fantastic. He gave a list of things they told him not to say or talk about, and then proceeded to say and talk about those things on purpose just because he could. I'm normally not, I'm not the biggest fan of the whole celebrity wing. Sometimes I think they make silly choices with the celebrity wing. Although, you know, I did enjoy Kid Rock's speech. I do enjoy at least the majority of Kid Rock's music. And so I don't have a problem with this. I still think the celebrity wing of the Hall of Fame is kind of a silly idea. But, you know, I'm not the one making choices. So, but it was a nice speech. It was cool to see him, you know. And then, of course, we got the Jeff Jarrett package, which featured, just remind you of just how many changes Jarrett has gone through over the years. Road Dogg inducted Jeff Jarrett, which was, yeah, it was a nice little, it was history tied up in a nice little bow there. And, you know, Jarrett goes on to to give his speech and talk about family. And I noticed that they have Kurt Angle and and Karen Jarrett on other sides of the audience, probably for the best. So they, but neither here nor there. Don't want to get into domestic disputes, but you know, Jarrett gave a nice speech. The highlight was him and Road Dogg running around the audience singing "Alone with My Baby Tonight," which was hysterical. I was dying. You know, I was laughing quite a bit at that. I still say that that Michael Hayes singing "Bad Street USA" was probably better and more fun, but this was still a lot of fun. We then went into the Warrior Award, and of course, you know, Dana Warrior presents the Warrior Award, and this year the Warrior Award went to Jarius J.J. Robertson, who has he has an astounding story. You know, the boy's literally gone through hell, and you know, he's come out the other side, and he's doing okay, and he's got a cause that he's fighting for, and you know, it's good for him. You know, it sucks that he had to go through all this crap, for lack of a better term, but you know, he's strong on the other side, so, and hopefully he stays that way. You know, he stuck up for Roman Reigns, because he mentioned Roman Reigns and everybody started booing. He's like, no, don't do that. It was funny. You know, I personally don't like Roman Reigns, but I understand that there are people that do, and people have their reasons for liking them. I don't ever pick on somebody for liking somebody else. Sometimes I express not understanding, but you know, that's neither here nor there. Jarius, he gave a nice speech. He's got great energy, and entertaining kid, full of life, and you know, it's nice to see, especially when you realize what he had to go through to get there. Moving on from there, we got the I guess you call it the semi-main event, which was the induction of Mark Henry. Big Show was who inducted Mark, and he had some funny stories to tell about Mark. And of course, Mark went out there and he talked about his transition. He talked about his favorite wrestler of all time being Andre the Giant. You know, he obviously talked about growing up a poor kid and you know, making something of himself. Which you know, you hear a similar story as far as, you know, coming from practically nothing to make something of yourself out of a lot of first generation wrestlers. You know, it's not uncommon. You know, and that's not to take away from any of their stories, but you know, it's that there is especially, you know, in the past, there's a real correlation of the struggle to make it. And you know, when you come from nothing, and you know, might be the wrong word to use, but when you come from humble beginnings, you maybe have a little bit more grit and determination to actually to make it work and make something of yourself with it, to where if you came from a privileged background, you may not be as willing, you know, you may not be as willing to put your head down and grind through. That's, you know, pure speculation on my part, but I wonder if that's not why that correlation existed, other than the fact that, you know, back in the day, they wanted to make it difficult so they could scare anybody away who wasn't going to be cut out for the business. And obviously it's different today. I mean, guys are still working hard, guys are still busting their asses. But it's especially with the Performance Center and NXT, and the situation is different, at least for some people today. There is still an indie scene, which I try not to pay too much attention to, because ultimately I go see what's going on in the indie scene, and I see some jackass jump out of the rafters in a school gymnasium, miss the guy and the table, and, you know, practically kill himself on the cement floor or whatever the floor was made out of. And I'm like, oh God, you know what? This is why, you know, not to sound like an asshole, but this is why, you know, some people, some of these indie promotions maybe shouldn't exist, that because they're, shit like this is happening. But, maybe I've just got bad timing when I go to check out the independent scene. I don't know. But in either case, Mark Henry's speech was nice. He talked about, he did some funny things with the going into his sexual chocolate gimmick, and the only two ladies he talked to in the crowd from the sexual chocolate gimmick were Stephanie McMahon and his wife, his own wife. Two very safe choices. He started talking to Stephanie, and then when I realized the second woman he was talking to was his wife, I laughed, because it's like, yeah, that's a safe choice there, Mark. Safe choice. That woman kick your ass. But no. And Mark teased us that maybe he wouldn't retire, but he's going to retire. He's going to go and spend time with his kids, which is good for him. His kids still look like they're young enough to where, he didn't miss everything. You know what I mean? And obviously he may have missed first steps or first words or whatnot, but his son looks, if I had to guess, I'd say his son was around 12, 11, 12 years old, and his daughter probably around 9 or 10. So, they got he's still got an opportunity to have time with them, and I think it's great that he's going to take advantage of that, because I can tell you personally that between the ages of 10, 11, yeah, to like 19, 20, 21, speaking as a male, though, that's like the most important time for you to have your father, because that's the time frame when you have to grow into a man. That's the time frame when you're going to learn so many of the rough and hard lessons of life, and that boy will benefit from having his father around, which is something it doesn't sound like Mark himself had. So it's nice to see cycles being broken. We have way too many cases of absentee fathers, or kids not even knowing who their fathers are in this country. I can only talk about this country. I don't actually know the statistics on the rest of the world, but I do know it is a problem, or at least I view it as one. And so it's nice to see that that's not continuing to happen, because a lot of these things, they kind of work in a circle. You know what I mean? And it's nice to see the cycle get broken. So kudos to Mark Henry, for being a good dad, and he's going to be there for his kids. So that's good for him, and for them. Moving on from there, the main event inductee, of course, was Bill Goldberg. Paul Heyman inducting Goldberg. He didn't talk that much about Goldberg during his induction speech, though. He mostly just took shots at Roman Reigns and promoted Brock Lesnar, but what do you expect? It's Paul Heyman. Goldberg gave a speech. I'll give Goldberg credit, because he didn't lie. He didn't stand up there and say, yeah, I always wanted to be a pro wrestler and I always dreamed of being in the WWE Hall of Fame. No, he was honest. That wasn't his dream. He wanted to be a football star. He wanted to play in the NFL, have a full career, and end up in the NFL Hall of Fame. Those were the things that he wanted as a kid. But as life often does, sometimes it may not give us what we want, but it will often give us what we need. And his sentiment is that he ended up exactly where he needed to be, and he's better off for it. He thanked his wife and his son and his family, and he picked on Roman Reigns for copying the spear, and it was a fun time. I would definitely give the Hall of Fame a watch. It was a good time overall. Good messages all the way around. Nobody really had anything bad to say. It was good. It was fun. If you didn't get a chance to see it, I highly suggest you take a look at it. And I still say, now more than ever, I say Kid Rock will perform American Badass at WrestleMania. Undertaker will come out on his Harley Davidson to that theme, and we will have an impromptu match between the American badass version of Undertaker and John Cena. So that is it. That is it for me. I am Ken Carnage. And remember, until next time, Carnage is right around the corner.